بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بدعوته أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Getting started a bit late tonight. My apologies for that. Even though me apologizing doesn't change the fact that we're starting late. However, out of basic consideration, we wanted to have announced that we were going to be starting late tonight. But where we were in some difficult conditions with regards to the connection. By the time we realized that we were going to be this late, and to tell the people the reception where we were, it was 0 to none. Al-Muhim, we're late. So let's get started. With that being said. So we have chapter number 69. Chapter 69. States here in the book, باب استحباب صلاة النافلة في بيته وجوازها في المسجد. حديث ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: اجعلوا في بيوتكم من صلاتكم ولا تتخذوها قبورا. حديث أبي موسى رضي الله عنه قال: قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: مثل الذي يذكر ربه والذي لا يذكره مثل الحي والميت. حديث زيد بن ثابت رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اتخذ حجرة من حصير في رمضان فصلى فيها ليالي فصلى بصلاته ناس من أصحابه فلما علم بهم جعل يقعد فخرج إليهم فقال: قد عرفت الذي رأيت من صنيعكم فصلوا أيها الناس في بيوتكم فإن أفضل الصلاة صلاة المرء في بيته إلا المكتوبة. Chapter number 29, I don't know if I said 69. Chapter 29, it says preference of establishing nawafil prayer in the house, but it is allowed to offer them in the mosque. We've explained this already. The recommendation, the preference, istihbab, of offering prayers which are nawafil, voluntary prayers, extra prayers in one's home, and not necessarily in the masjid. As we have previously explained, the wisdom behind this and the ruling on this, if you're going to go home and forget about those extra prayers, or if the people are going to bombard you when you walk into the house, etc., then make those prayers in the masjid. And if you're not going to forget about them, and you do have the ability to make them in your house when you enter your home, etc., then the best place is to make them in the house. We explained the kalam of Ahl al-Ilm regarding that. We have 3 hadiths in the chapter. The first is hadith 445. It's narrated by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma. The Prophet ﷺ said, offer some of your salah at home and do not take your houses as graves. Hadith 446 is narrated by Abu Musa radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ said, the example of the one who remembers his Lord in comparison to the one who does not remember his Lord is that of a living creature compared to a dead one. Hadith 447 is narrated Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu. Allah's Messenger ﷺ made a small room in the month of Ramadan. Thabit said that it was made of a mat, and he offered salah there for a few nights, and some of his companions prayed behind him. When he came to know about it, he kept on sitting. In the morning he went out to them and said, I have seen and understood what you did. So, O people, you should offer salah in your houses, for the best salah of a person is that which he prays in his house, except the compulsory congregational salah. So these 3 hadiths, specifically hadith 445 and 447, specifically show us the clear command and the clear excellence and the clear virtue of making these prayers in one's house without any exception. These hadiths don't give an exception because we know that the nawafil prayers or of different types, right? Different types. There are certain prayers which aren't obligatory, which are recommended but are made and to be made in congregation, such as Taraweeh, or what about Kusuf, eclipse, seeking rain. Some ulama even say al-jama'ah, congregation. Naam. Al-muhim, certain prayers that are made in what? Congregation. Some people may say the Eid. Those ulama, many of the ulama hold the view that the Eid is not mandatory. That the Eid prayer is not mandatory. All right? Al-muhim, this chapter heading and these hadiths don't give any exception. But we know that there are certain nafil prayers or nafil prayers which are to be made in congregation, whether it's in the masjid or other than the masjid. And the nafila prayers are of different levels and different types. Absolute, nafil mutlaq, nafil muqayyad, like we explained with regards to the times in which you should and should not make these extra prayers, right? We've explained that. طيب. An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says here in the Sharh, معناه صلوا فيها ولا تجعلوها كالقبور مهجورة من الصلاة والمراد به صلاة النافلة أي صلوا النوافل في بيوتكم. وقال القاضي عياض قيل هذا في الفريضة ومعناه اجعلوا بعض فرائضكم في بيوتكم ليقتدي بكم من لا يخرج إلى المسجد من نسوة وعبيد ومريض ونحوهم. قال وقال الجمهور بل هو في النافلة لإخفائها. وللحديث الآخر أفضل الصلاة صلاة المرء في بيته إلى المكتوبة. قلت الصواب أن المراد النافلة وجميع حديث الباب تقتضيه ولا يجوز حمله على الفريضة وإنما حث على النافلة في البيت لكونه أخفى وأبعد من الرياء وأصون من المحبطات وليتبرك البيت بذلك وتنزل فيه الرحمة والملائكة وينفر منه الشيطان كما جاء في الحديث الآخر وهو معنى قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الرواية الأخرى فإن الله جاعل في بيته من صلاته خيرا. He says this hadith means pray in your homes and don't turn your homes into graveyards, places that are abandoned. Don't turn your homes into abandoned graveyards. As far as what's meant by prayer, pray in your homes, then it's the nafila prayer and not make the congregational prayer in your house. It doesn't mean that, he says. It doesn't mean to make the compulsory prayer in the bait. Qadi Iyad, he says, qila, others they say, others hold the interpretation that some prayers should be made in the house, which are mandatory. He says that the hadith also means mandatory prayers to be made in the house. And that is for those who don't go out to the masjid to take your example. That's for the wisdom of the purpose for those who aren't normally going to the masjid to take your example. He says women that don't go out the house to go to the masjid, servants, people who are sick and ill, elderly, etc. He says, however, the majority of the ulama hold the first interpretation. The majority of the people of knowledge hold the first interpretation. That the Prophet ﷺ says, Sallu, ij'alu, fi buyutikum. Pray in your houses, place in your houses, prayer that isn't mandatory. And he's not talking about the faridah, but he's only talking about the nafilah. Tayyib. The reason why the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to make these prayers in the house, he says there are several reasons. Many different wisdoms. Wisdom number one, or reason one, it allows a person to have a higher level of sincerity. A higher level of sincerity. In which you pray with less prying eyes. Less people looking at you and watching you. MashaAllah, Fulan is pious. He's righteous. He made the jama'ah. He's making prayers, MashaAllah. This could happen in one's house. Or even with the jama'ah. One may say, I don't want to pray in the congregation because I fear riyah. You don't have an option. That's first and foremost. You don't have what? an option with regards to the understanding that the Jama'ah is obligatory, which is the correct view, the strongest view. But the point is, in things in which there's no option. All right? One brother, he said, he was a cab driver in Medina, very nice guy. He would pick us up, take us home. He would be in the back of the bookstore. We go to the bookstore, buy books. He said, you know, mashallah, you know, I would like to grow my beard. He says, but I can't grow it because everyone in my family or my, you know, my tribe, they'll think that I'm a scholar. They'll think that I'm a sheikh, and I'm not a sheikh, and I don't want to take on that responsibility and have people coming to me and saying, oh, he's a sheikh, he's mutawwa, he's religious with a beard. So obviously we're going to say what? That you don't what? You don't have an option to think like that. Because the wisdom applies to it. If it's the wisdom behind praying in the house, it keeps you, it's better for your sincerity, your ikhlas. And it's further away from showing off. One could make that argument regarding the Jama'ah. I don't want to pray the Jama'ah because people want to say that I'm showing off. MashaAllah, Fulan is always on the front row. He's always comes for the Jama'ah. But in that instance, you don't have the what? Choice. Everyone understand this? You don't have the choice. And this is just another manifestation of how the shaitan tricks people. Of how Satan plays games. Tricks them, right? Oh, I don't want to do this because I don't want you to think that I'm... You don't have an option. Everyone understand this? You don't have a what? An option. There's no choice. So certain things that you must do in public. Certain things you have to do in front of the people. And you don't have a what? A choice. And that also applies to teaching knowledge, right? Khalid? Somebody may say, I don't want to do the khutbah because I don't want people to think that I'm pious and righteous. I have sins. I'm not a righteous person like that. I don't want them to think I'm some type of saint or angel. In this situation, you may be the best person for the khutbah. You may be the most knowledgeable person. You may have the most eloquence. You don't have a what? An option. You have to do it. And perhaps by you taking on a responsibility, growing your beard, covering up, putting on the proper hijab, that guilt and the feeling of hypocrisy may lead you to being of that righteous status. Everyone understand this wisdom here? So you have to be able to you have to know what you're doing. Yani when you're dealing with your nafs and with shaitan. Okay? It's like wrestling, right? Grappling. It's not just about brute force or strength. You have to have skill. You have to know, okay, how to avoid getting tripped and slammed. All right? Because the shaitan here will trick you. Khairan, inshallah. So the first wisdom is that it's safer for one's sincerity and it's further from showing off. And it's also a means of greater protection for something which is muhbit. And muhbit doesn't have to be just shirk or riyah, showing off. But a person, he may pray or he may teach knowledge or whatever, and he may be taken over by conceit. Conceit, right? Ujb, conceit, thinking that you're all that, right? Thinking that you're, you know, MashaAllah. You understand this? And that is different than riyah. Riyah and ujb are two different things. Riyah is wanting to be seen by men. Sum'ah is wanting to be heard by men. Ujb is pride and conceit in which you pray and you say, you know what? Yeah, this is, you know, I'm really righteous, man. I'm doing it, right? I'm in the masjid every day. I'm teaching them this, I'm that, you know, I'm knowledgeable. I'm doing the people a favor. I'm helping them. You understand? Or sometimes you may be praying in front of a window. Or you might see in the mirror and you see your hands going up. Oh, man, that don't look too bad, right? Everyone understand this? Just keep it real, right? You know what I'm talking about, Nafis? It may happen. You feel pious. You feel righteous. Raising your hands. Allahu Akbar. It looks nice. It can get to you. People start praising you, clapping, patting you on the back. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah. It can happen. All right? Or looking down upon other people. Look how he prayed. He's crazy. Shout out. He can barely pray. Look how he makes salah. He's fiddling, fumbling. His pants are beneath his ankles. His beard is shaven. He's this and he's that. You start looking down on people and scorning people. That's also another example of something which is, he says, al-muhbitat. Things which could render your deed null and void. And it does not mean that it's what? Riyah. Understand this? The only thing that people hear is riyah, 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 riyah. Oh, you're showing off. But it's much more than that. You understand this? You may have this filth in your heart. And what it seems that you're doing outwardly is piety and righteousness. But you have that filth in your heart. That I'm better than this person or that person. I'm better than you. I'm higher than you. You can barely do it. What type of Islam are you practicing and this and that and so on and so forth? This can happen. The shaitan will try to trick people of ilm and sunnah just like he will try to trick the people of ignorance and bid'ah. So we have to be mindful of this. Al-hadar, al-hadar. Beware, 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 beware. Knowledge seekers, teachers, whoever would beware of this conceit falling into your heart. And once you start thinking, I'm the man, or as we say in Philly, I'm that bull. You understand this? Everyone understand this? I'm that dude. No doubt. I'm killing them, putting in work. Beware of this. And I'm only telling you the reality of it from experience is that the shaitan will try to creep up on you. He will try to what? Creep up on you. And if you think that you're saved just because you have a big beard and you wear a thobe and just because you study and you speak fluently, and don't think that you're saved. Don't think that, Yahi. All right? And don't think that you're doing the people a favor. Look at the fact that the people are doing you a favor by coming to you and asking you and allowing you to teach them. Everyone understand this? So we have to be mindful of this. And obviously, it's easy for someone to say it who doesn't have it, who's never experienced it. It's easy for you to say, oh, Fulan's arrogant, Fulan's conceited, Fulan thinks he knows everything. It's easy for you to say. But you are not Fulan. This brother's walking around with books in his head. He's memorized more books than you've come across. He's memorized more books than you've ever picked up, let alone read, memorized. It's easy for you to say, be humble. You understand this? Oh, the rich people are stingy with their money. They don't spend, they're arrogant, they're stuck up. It's easy for you to say because you're not what? You don't know what it feels like. You understand? You can't truly relate. Huh? So we have to be mindful of this. And the shaitan is an open enemy. Waliyadu billah. He's a plain adversary. There is no hidden trick. You know that shaitan is coming for your jugular vein. You know that. He's coming right for your neck. So be mindful. No, he then says, وَلِيَتَبَرَّكَ الْبَيْتُ بِذَلِكَ. And also for the bait to get barakah. For the bait to have barakah in it from one's prayer. He says, وَتَنْزِلَ فِيهِ الرَّحْمَةِ. And for mercy to descend in one's house. وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ. And angels. And for the shaitan to run away. As is mentioned in another hadith. All of these, he says, are the fawaid and the hikam, the wisdoms of what? Of praying these prayers in the house. So, once more, like we read last night, with regards to Salat al-Fajr and the fawaid of Fajr, etc., if you're not making Salat at all, forget congregation, forget the extra, you don't even pray. What type of rahmah is in your house? What type of angels are in your house? What type of shaitan or shayateens? What type of shayateens are in your house? Are you understand this? This is serious. This is scary. As we said before, it's very scary. We have Muslim family members or family members who say, La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah, and the prayer is the last of their worries. Huh? Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. The next hadith, the hadith of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, he says, فيه الندب إلى ذكر الله تعالى في البيت. First and foremost, this hadith shows us the recommendation of mentioning Allah's name, making the dhikr of Allah, right? In one's home. In one's what? In one's home. Everyone understands? In one's what? In one's home. And not just always in the masjid, or not just always outside, but also what? In one's what? In one's house, one's home. وأنه لا يخلى من الذكر. And that dhikr should never ever be void. One's house should never be void of dhikr. Never. Should never be a time in which there's no dhikr in one's what? In one's house. Everyone understand this? Khairan inshallah. Moving forward. Says here. وفيه جواز التمثيل. And this hadith also shows the permissibility of making an example. Making a parable. Making a metaphor. The likeness, the similitude. Those who make the dhikr of Allah and those who don't are like the living and the dead. The permissibility of making an example. Everyone understand this? And from this and other texts of Quran and Sunnah and other principles, Some scholars have said that it's permissible to write fiction. The fiction which leads to a moral, which leads to a lesson. Like we explained before, from one thing you learn what? 10,000 other things. Moving forward. وفيه أن طول العمر في الطاعة فضيلة. طيب. Moving forward. The last hadith of the chapter. He says here بمعنى شك الراوي في المذكورة منهما ومعنى احتجر هجرة أي حوط موضعا من المسجد بحصير ليستره ليصلي فيه ولا يمر بين يديه مار ولا يتشوش بغيره ولا ويتوفر خشوعه وفراغ قلبه. وفيه جواز مثل هذا إذا لم يكن فيه تضييق على المصلين ونحوهم ولم يتخذه دائما لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يحتجرها بالليل يصلي فيها. He says here, speaking on the concept of the hujrah, of taking a small little tent or house in the masjid, a small little box type of structure, type of construction, the permissibility of doing it, the wisdom of it, not having people walking in front of you, people bothering you, you becoming distracted by other people, if it's done occasionally. And it was at nighttime and not necessarily in the daytime, right? Not necessarily in the daytime. طيب. وفيه جواز النافلة في المسجد وفيه جواز الجماعة في غير المكتوبة وجواز الاقتداء بمن. طيب. And he mentions the other fawaid as well that we previously explained when the Prophet knew the companions were behind him praying, right? We explained this last week or the week before. And he talks about the concept of mercy, kindness, and being mindful of the well-being of your subjects. We explained that as well, right? Fair for the people not to have the ability to do it. Khairan, inshallah. All right, so that's all we're going to take tonight with regards to wal-Marjan. Alhamdulillah, that's a lot. Bidnillahi ta'ala, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.